Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Kim Coble. I'm the Executive Director of the Maryland League of Conservation Voters, and it's great to see you and have you join us today. Today's topic, electric school buses, which who knew was such a thing, but we're going to hear from Delegate Fraser Hidalgo, who's the key sponsor of the bills. And if you want to follow at home, HB House Bill 696, Senate Bill 948. And Senator Kramer's the sponsor on the Senate side. I'm also joined today by Ramón Palencia-Calvo, who is our Deputy Director at Maryland LCV. He also runs our Latino outreach program called Chispa. So he'll be joining me as well. So as typically we do, if you have questions for anybody, go ahead and put them in the chat and we'll pick them up at the end of the conversation. And there will be a questionnaire, little survey. It's very short. Any feedback you want to provide us, we appreciate. This is a new idea for us this year, so we're trying to perfect it and make sure we're providing you the information you need to be informed, engaged, and inspired conservation voters. So as we turn to electric school buses, let me start with a very short video from last Tuesday.
No! Clean buses now! 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 Woo! No!
So there you have a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of creativity. Want to thank staff for working with our Chispa partners and creating the school buses that we had out in Lawyers Mall. We had a great turnout. And it was a lot of fun. So as I mentioned, Delegate Fraser Hidalgo from Montgomery County, District 15, is the lead sponsor and has been a true advocate. One of the things I've often said that when you promote legislation, the most important decision you make is who's going to be your sponsor. Because once you pick a sponsor, they become the champion of the bill. We could not have picked a better sponsor. He's been just fabulous on this. Unfortunately, he's doing his day job right now and he's in hearings and he had a scheduling conflict. So I had a chance to sit down with him in his office and videotape him about this bill. I asked him what's in it, kind of where his inspiration came from and some of the details. So we're going to show that video, and unfortunately you won't be able to ask him any questions directly, but you can submit questions to Ramon or I in the chat afterwards. So with that, let's go ahead and turn to the video. Thank you, Delegate Fraser Hidalgo, for joining us today. We're very excited to talk to you about the electric school bus pilot program bill that you've put in. And let me start with the easy question and tell us about the bill.
Great, thank you. So the bill is a very similar bill. We've had the bill going back a few years now, but the bill is a very similar bill we had last year, which passed out of the House. And essentially what the bill does is it provides a revenue opportunity for school systems that want to transition to electric school buses. The cost of an electric school bus can be 2 to 3 times or 3.5 times higher than a regular school bus on the original purchase. The question is, how do we make that happen? And what this bill does is it allows the utilities to essentially write a check, bridge that gap, so school system, county or Montgomery or any other school system with the school bus program to help make that transition, which is an incredibly important transition.
Tell us a little bit about that. Why electric school buses?
Yeah, so this came out probably about 5 years ago, as my kids were at elementary school at the time. And I started looking at all of these school buses picking up and dropping off, and all these parents and teachers there. Kindergartners, and their mouth was about the exact height of an exhaust pipe. And I started thinking about that. I started talking to the principal of one of the schools who were sitting there, and I just started getting more and more enlightened and enraged at the same time. And then I started researching and realized that really what we've been doing is putting kids on school buses, and the particulate matter in the school bus can be well over 2.5 or 3 times greater than the particulate matter outside the school bus when it comes to school emissions and pollution. I started thinking about that for a minute. Like, wow, we're actually taking our kids and putting them in a situation that exposes them to volatile compounds and exposes them to all kinds of pollution that they shouldn't have. And then I started researching and realizing that we spend over $27 billion a year just in respiratory issues with kids. And then I started realizing, well, this is what we've been doing as a society for generation after generation after generation. And nobody really thought about it until we start thinking about what we're doing, analyzing it from a scientific perspective. And quite frankly, it's not really scientific, it's really common sense. You know, the kids are all there, the people getting on the buses and off the buses, they have their windows down, they're yelling and waving to their friends. And all the time they're doing that, those diesel fumes are either leaking from the exhaust and the manifold system into the bus, or they're coming out of the exhaust pipe and the wind is blowing them back into the school, into the actual cab. The bus, and then the bus drives away, they close the windows, and then they just leave it spinning out.
Yeah, and every school kid that's on a bus in the country is suffering that. And bus drivers too.
And bus drivers and the bus depots. I mean, there's sometimes hundreds of buses in the bus depots.
Yeah.
And so you have all the mechanics that are dealing with it, and then the neighborhoods, all those neighborhoods where those bus depots are around the state. All these buses, 50, 100, 200, 250 buses coming in and out every single day, spewing that stuff.
Yeah. So the technology's there, right? There are such things as electric school buses.
There absolutely are, and I've ridden one. There's a dealer in, I'll just say there's a dealer in Maryland that I visited, and I got to ride on one, and it was really, really cool to ride on an electric school bus that had a 250-mile range. So this whole range anxiety thing, that's not a credible argument. And the only thing I heard were the leaf springs, which is when you get a bump into the springs, that's all you hear. And it had seatbelts on it. So if you want to come after my heart, like get me to an electric school bus with seatbelts, then I'm a happy daddy, right?
Right. So then the only thing that's preventing us from putting these out there is the cost. It's the school districts don't have that kind of money in their budgets.
Mm-hmm.
So this bill, if I understand it correctly, is really bringing the private sector to the table to be part of the solution.
It's partially the private sector because in Montgomery County, what they did, which is really cool, is they had the private sector specifically come in and bridge that financial gap. And the reason they did that is for the same reason that this bill does it with the utilities, is because at the end of the day, we have an electrical grid problem. We do not develop enough clean energy, and we don't know how to store it yet. So the holy grail, everybody thinks is, well, a lot of people think it's solar and wind. No, it's not. It's the storage of the electricity. And the beauty of this bill from Montgomery County, which is already moving forward, the beauty of this is that it allows the utilities to get involved. Now you ask, why do the utilities want to be involved? And I'll tell you, the utilities want to be involved because they can store that electricity, and at the end of the day, at 5 o'clock, when you come home from work, and oh my God, it's so hot, it's the middle of the summer, they put their air conditioning on, that's when the grid is taxed really hard. And that's when coal-fired power plants come on, because they can go up and down, they can come in and produce a lot of electricity in a short period of time. That's not what we want on a 95 or 100-degree day. We don't want more coal being burned in order to generate electricity to power air conditioners. So the beauty about this for the utilities is that they have to pay the coal-fired power plants an exorbitant rate, like a peak rate for the electricity. Well, now the utilities are going to allow, we can save our ratepayers money because we don't have to charge that peak rate, and they get the electricity off of these 250 kilowatt-hour battery packs. So the beauty of it is, amongst the fact that it cleans the air or it doesn't pollute the air, but helps really protect our kids, helps protect our drivers, helps protect all the neighborhoods from an environmental justice perspective, it's huge. But also, it stores electricity, and those school buses aren't doing anything in the summer, so you charge those batteries all day, hopefully via solar and wind and renewables. And then at 5 o'clock, the utilities take the electricity off of those batteries, and that's what's used to turn your air conditioner on at home, and it's clean. And that's the hope, is that we get it all clean. And on top of all that, yes, there's that big investment. The utilities end up purchasing, they purchased it ahead of time. So the electrons that they're pulling off of those batteries are a lot less expensive than the electrons that they would have to buy in the open market at peaker rates from dirty coal. So it's a win-win-win.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to.
And all over, it's a win-win-win.
Right.
So why is there opposition to this bill?
So, well, as you know, while we're talking about this, is because we've been in partnership for years on this bill. working with LCV has been an incredible partner. Working with Ramón has been an incredible partner. We've been working for years, different versions of the bill. I've had my kids come down and testify. And a couple of years ago, we had the idea of doing what we're doing now with the utilities, and that's been the magic. The resistance is, there's several fold of the resistance. The first part of the resistance is really the financial, is the understanding of the cost, which what this bill really gets at doing. And what Montgomery County did in a private, they did a private program with it. And this would be a utility program, but that cost of an electric school bus can be two times as much money. People don't always understand that just in the maintenance alone, you can make a lot of that money back. You're not buying diesel fuel. You're buying electrons, which go much further than diesel fuel does. Also, the maintenance of the buses, you don't have to do brakes, you don't as often because you have regenerative braking on these buses. And on top of that piece, you also you have regenerative braking, you don't have oil changes, you don't have transmission buses, you don't have to rebuild motors, you don't have all the things that cost an exorbitant amount of money. So at the end of a 12-year cycle, the electric bus with the brakes unit will make money. It just takes longer to do that. So the initial part is, well, the cost. And the secondary part is people just don't understand it. And like I said earlier, we've been doing this thing like with our kids for years. We don't think about it. Well, my parents don't have a bus. Why can't I be on the bus? Why can't I do it? And it just, so most people don't equate that the fumes on the bus, the pollution on the bus is so much greater than outside. They don't realize it. So I think that is a really big piece of it. And then the idea of changing, when you have mechanics that have been working on these school buses for 100 years, now all of a sudden like, what plugs and electricity? It's a foreign concept, and a lot of people don't really want to put the energy into learning. Not everybody, but some don't.
So our conversation is, because you can't join us on Friday, I know you're in session, so we completely understand that. But we'll be joined by LCD constituents and members and donors and people that really care about conservation and care about the political process. So in the last couple of minutes, give us some advice for them. What can they do to really help advance this bill?
So I think we shouldn't have a lot of problem in the House. Senate that worry about. We do have a Senate cross file and Senator Ben Kramer. It's his first year with the bill. But Ben is very, very well respected, and Ben knows his stuff. I think a lot of people might not understand that about Ben, but he knows his stuff. We do a lot of environmental bills together. So really, the action I would say is just on the Senate side, making sure that the bill gets voted and people understand what they're voting for, and they understand the reasons that they're voting for it. I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of what goes on when we try to transition our economy to electrify our economy is we're moving zeros and ones out of one column to another column, right? And the folks that have their zeros and ones removed from one column, they're going to fight tooth and nail. And the ones that get it the other side are excited to get it in most cases. In this particular case, we spend over $27 billion a year in respiratory health care for emergency room visits and kids. So if we can move a few $1 billion out of that column into this column and prevent it, that's a win. That's another win. So
Great way to look at it.
All right, I apologize for the audio. Hopefully you got the nuts and bolts on it, but let me turn to Ramón. And Ramón, maybe you can just do a quick overview of the bill in case folks were having trouble hearing the delegate there.
Sure, yes. So this bill, what it does is creates a pilot program where investor-owned utilities, the large utilities in Maryland, and school districts partner to transition diesel to electric school buses. And the utilities will cover the incremental costs of purchasing and deploying electric school buses. That's the gist of the program. The program has some equity provisions, labor provisions to make sure that employees, drivers, maintenance workers, and others affected by this transition, they're factored in and retrained so they get to be part of this transition, and also equity requirements that in a way that some communities that are overburdened by pollution are favored in this transition when deploying the buses. And it also contemplates that the buses will have vehicle-to-grid technology. That's the technology where the batteries, when they're not being used, can be feed into the grid the storage electrons, Delegate Fresh put it. And, that has advantages for the grid stability, incorporating renewable energies to the grid and some others. And also it could be monetized down the road by a school district. So they can benefit for that energy they're putting back into the grid. So yeah, in a gist, that's the gist of the bill.
Great. I have two angles of questions, but let me start with why are we doing a pilot program in this bill? Why aren't we advocating for this kind of thing across the whole state?
Well, let me go back a few years when we tried to do that, just having a mandate across the states, transitioning, asking school district to transition diesel to electric buses starting in a year as they turn the buses. And we are very conscious about this trend that will put into school districts at the moment. The intention of this transition, this bill, improving the health of children and communities, is not to put that pressure in school districts so they have to use funds that otherwise they would use for school programs, buildings, and other purposes, right? So we are doing it in a way, we're conscious that it's a big step, a big transition. We're doing it in a way that it will help the school districts to start that transition, start calculating what it takes, get into the programs, plan for the future, get something that is manageable and they can scale up that experience and turn into their whole fleets from diesel to electric. So it's an important step. And again, as Delegate Fisher also mentioned, it is the cost of an electric school bus is much higher than a diesel bus, although of course you recuperate some of that investment throughout the life of the bus in saving from fuel and maintenance. So it is important to us to get into that technology and take those steps. And we believe, although it's a pilot project, there's room for a lot of school buses to turn from diesel to electric.
Yeah, and we have some slides here, which leads me to my second line of questioning. I worked on a lot of bills in my career, and one thing I love about this bill is the fact that it really is a win-win-win. So it is going to help the environment. There's no doubt about that. You can see right there from the visual that the pollutants from a diesel truck are tremendous. We're going to reduce those. It's going to help public health-wise, and ultimately, it is a cost savings element to it. Especially if we're using this partnership with BG&E. So, Kristen, maybe pull up the slides, and Ramon, just really quickly touch on each of those aspects of the bill so everybody understands that this has really got a three-legged stool that's very, very strong.
So yes, exactly. I mean, we know that the problem with air pollution. We know that for children, asthma is the #1 chronic disease, and that prevents them when they have an asthma attack from going to school. They have to go to the hospital. They miss school. The families miss days of work to take care of the kids. Of course, the price, not just the emotional toll that it weighs on families having kids sick, but also the economic price. So that is very, very important for us it's important to clean the air, especially in those communities that are overburdened by pollution. So this is an important step. Those kids that travel from home to school every day, twice, and some routes are an hour, 45 minutes, to make sure that they breathe clean air, and they're not exposed to those toxic pollutants. That is very important. The other is the economic piece, right? We want to make sure that electric school buses in the long run will save money to school districts. Although again, it has a higher upfront cost throughout the life of the bus. It reduces 60 to 80% on fuel and maintenance. So those are important savings that in this bill, the school districts get to keep and apply to other areas where they want to spend some more extra money. So those are important factors of the bill. And one other thing that I'll say, so just so folks have an idea of the magnitude of the program, this would be, this will cover 4 utilities, and each utility, in order to start the program, they have to have a minimum deployment of 25 buses. So at least the program will cover a couple of hundred buses. There's a maximum of $50 million per utility. So it's up to $200 million, which is a large number of buses that they can deploy. And again, will give school districts a very important data and operations opportunities to deploy the buses and really understand the technology and scale up with years.
Ramon, we have a question from one of the participants about, how long will the pilot go on? So before we know that it's successful. The other point, if you can weave in there too, is that there are federal funds through the infrastructure bill for electric school buses. So hopefully, yeah, go ahead and talk about the future there.
Yeah, so the pilot program lasts for 3 to 5 years. Utilities can ask for an extension, but it's a 3-5 year program. And I'm glad that you brought up the federal funding. So yes, we know that on the infrastructure bill, there were $5 billion with a B dollar allocated for electrification for the school buses, for clean technologies, $2.5 million for electric buses, another $2.5 for alternatives, including electrification of buses. So it could be a potentially $5 billion for school buses. And this is a program that is going to be run out of the EPA. They're now crafting the program that hopefully in a couple of months will announce the mechanics of the program. But one of the things that we've been hearing is that they're going to prioritize the school districts, of course, that have some experience and some leverage on electric school buses. So I think that this bill for Maryland is very important because it'll give school districts in Maryland the opportunity to start experiencing with electric school buses, and it'll give a leg up, let's say, in order for them to apply for that federal funding for electrification of their fleet. So we think it's very important to complement and put our school districts in Maryland in a better position in order to apply for federal funding.
Yeah, and we're getting a number of questions around, what you've described are large school districts and the 4 big utilities. And I think obviously that makes sense for the pilot phase, but what happens to the smaller contractors or the individual bus owners that are smaller? How will they be able to access this technology? How would the funding work for them?
So I think, the bill has flexibility in a way that is not just for school districts to initiate those conversations, but it leaves a space for contractors to also be part of this bill. So that's an opportunity that contractors have that provide transportation services to a school district. So that is baked there. Now, moving forward, and just as an overall trend in the industry, the school bus industry, we're seeing how all manufacturers are coming out with new models for all types of vehicles, but the ones that are type B vehicles, buses that of course haven't been sold in the US since 2018 probably, but all other types that are the ones that we see on the road, the big, the small, they are, type A, C, and B, and D, they are already coming out with models that travel the distance anywhere from 105 miles to 250 miles. So they're already equipped with vehicle-to-grid technology that we alluded to. So that is that is the trend in the industry. So I think that with time, everybody will turn to those to electric school buses.
Have the utilities taken a position on the bill?
Yes, the utilities support this bill. Of course, it's an opportunity for them. They see the market coming. So of course, it's an opportunity for them. But I also want to say that, these type of bills, I think what they also can send is a strong it's a strong signal. So manufacturers, school districts, and others can really plan what's coming up in the future, how to produce, how to deploy, how to purchase their buses. So I think that this is also that opportunity that we are seeing where the direction is taking us, and it gives opportunity for those stakeholders to really plan what's coming up.
That's great. Well, thank you, Ramon. It's been really good questions and conversations. And just in the last minute or so, can you let folks know what they can do or where we need them to help on this?
Yes, of course. We just had a hearing in the House. Let's remember that this bill was introduced originally last year and it passed the House. So we are in a good shape there. I think that should come up for a vote fairly quickly, and we'll move. So it's congratulating and thanking legislators for passing this bill. Now the next step is the Senate. The Senate there will have an opportunity to hear the bill, and it's very important that we engage those senators, especially constituents, to let them know what we think about this bill, why it's important to pass this bill, why should they support this bill and vote on it. I think that that is very important. We have an action alert in our website where folks can sign up, and we'll definitely reach out to them and to you all and communicate and see where we have those opportunities to be part of the decision-making process, to influence the decision-making process.
Great. And I know Kristen Eckel had put in the chat there the link to the action alert as well. So jump in, it's plenty of time. Which committee will the bill be heard in the Senate?
In the Finance Committee.
Yeah. So that's a tough committee for us sometimes. So we definitely could use some help. And I want to emphasize Ramon's point that it's so important to thank legislators when they do the right thing and vote the way we need them to. You know, let's make sure we're doing that as well as urging them ahead of time. So thank you, Ramon. It's always a pleasure, and I appreciate all the really great work you and your team's been doing on this bill. Before I lose you all and let you head back to your Friday afternoon, I want to let you know about another opportunity through Maryland LCV that we're particularly excited about. On March 8th and March 9th in the evenings at 7, we are holding 2 gubernatorial candidate climate forums. So this is a conversation, it's not a debate, but if you think about a traditional debate, it's set up that way. In other words, on March 8th at University of Maryland, and there's a link in we will put a link in the website for you to register for these events. They're free. We just need to know who's attending. You can attend virtually or you can attend in person. So the candidates actually see all the conservation voters that are interested. We have panelists, and at University of Maryland, it includes Josh Kurtz of Maryland Matters. We have Dr. Harrison of the NAACP, and we have Rona Cabell, who heads up the Environmental Justice and Journalism Initiative, which is a new initiative that's just started. Those 3 will be the panelists, and they will be asking the candidates questions around environment and conservation and climate and justice. On March 9th, it's the same format at Goucher College, and the panelists will be Josh Kurtz, Stacy Hartwell, who runs the environmental justice part of the Maryland NAACP, a student from Goucher, and Sheila Cast of WYPR. And they'll ask questions there too. Please engage. We really want to make sure that these candidates are somebody in this group is going to be the next governor. And we want them to see that a lot of people care about this issue. We have about, I think 11 candidates signed up for March 8th and maybe 9 on March 9th. Most of them are doing both. So it's going to be a robust conversation. So please join. And there's information in the chat. You can register there. Don't forget our survey. We definitely need input and are interested in your thoughts. And thanks again for joining us. Have a great Friday.